What do we do on Thursday? I'm here till after mincha. You guys, what I do with them? Okay. Hopefully we'll have a Suda on Thursday, but you know, it's the plan is it's a fast day. Chaim, now you're getting closer to Ben Azmanim. You got himself a beach in the background. Okay, it's a kosher beach, you're okay. You saw him? Okay, where's Mayor? As a kid, when Panvisher Rav was once in our house for Shabbos, so he used to drink hot water with a candy. You know, Litviks don't put sugar in a tea, they suck a candy. Did you ever see your grandparents maybe did that? So his tea was hot water. We used to call the Panvisher Rav's tea. That's what I do now. Let me tell you, the first time I met him, after I came to Edsher, he looks at me and says, "Oh, you're the mental used to get banged up every Shabbos." He said, "You know, I used to Makish." Says, "Yeah, it's me. Thank you." And I was thinking of living in Panovich, you understand? He advised me to go to Hebron. This place is not for you. You're too lively. Here you need Kabbalas. Oh, okay, yeshivas. So I went. He was right. Okay, the Gemara says in let's do this carefully. This is a shas again. I'm actually surprised there was no shir klali on this. I mean, there's so many chashimish b'tzugis here until you get to Ritm and Broike, the Kilen and Shavuos, with the Betzim. There's a lot of chashimish, but it's like an aid for those who know chashimish. But this is like a kid in a candy shop. So it says here, Shelach Rabbi Reb Yosef bar Chama halacha gayvim in avodim. Rav Blachman Amar ein gayvim. This is the machlokes. Zot Rashbam gayvim in avodim bal chayv shemeis gayvim avdi yisemim dikim mekakadami, because it's like karkois, and the karkois which can be karkois mishubadim. The bal chayv is the karkois is gayvim because bal chayv is gayvim from karkois that fall to the yisemim. The next Rav Nachman Amar ein gayvim dehida iskushe karkois dichsiv in vayikra hey v'isnachaltem. The emphasis, I just want to point out something really, a curiosity which I never knew why. If you want to look at the Chumash for a moment, this is just for people who have obsession. It's very interesting. Here, right. State the pasuk says like this. It's in Vayikra Chafei. There's pasuk Mem Hey and pasuk Mem Vav. So the pasuk Mem Hey says, "Gam mibnei yishavim agarmi machem mehem tiknu umishpachtam asher machem asher lidu ba'atzechem vayu lachem la'achuza." So here the idea it's called achuza as far as Kenyan is concerned. And now there's another pasuk. V'isnachaltem oisam livnechem achechem lereshet achuza. This is an achuza not just for Kenyan but for Yerusha. La'olam behem tavaidu. This continues because since it's an achuz, it's la'olam behem tavaidu. This sits very nicely, so it actually works very nice. Now, if you look carefully, where are the drush? If you open up a Teres Kainim, that's what I wanted to check it out today. So the Teres Kainim on the first pasuk, pasuk Memhei, which talks about achuza in the context of kinyan, there the Teres Kainim makes the drasha that just like achuza is nikna b'ketzav shtar b'chazaka, afa v'knani nikna b'ketzav shtar b'chazaka. So you learn it from the pasuk vayu lachem la'achuza. The second pasuk, which says v'snachaltem oisnev nechma chechem l'reshes achuza, which the pasuk is talking about Yerusha. Here the Teres Kainim darshans that just like karka achuza doesn't have hanoah or inoah. Also, avodim don't have ainah. It's really interesting to see. We're not going to do this here, but it's something that midbakesh. Now, if you look at the Sugis Abavli in the Kedusha Chav Beis, it's not that way. They learn it all they learn the halach from the second pasuk. So Rashbam brings the pasuk v'snachaltem oisur achechem l'reshes achuz. It doesn't bring the first pasuk, which is talking about kinyan. Only the second pasuk, which is talking about it's Yerusha. There you're saying it. So it's an interesting thing to be noticed. What are they doing here? Why would that's also what the Bavli and Kedushin Chav Beis is doing. If you look at the word Bavli and Kedushin Chav Beis, when we were in the Shaila, how do we know that in every Knani is Nikna B'kiyane Karka B'keser B'shtar B'chazaka Zot the Gemara Chav Beis Amed Beis Minon Dichsiv Yisnachaltem Oisnev Nech Macharechem L'Reshes Achuza Hikishan Akosov L'Zdei Achuza Mazdei Achuza Nikna B'keser B'shtar B'chazaka Ave V'knani Nikna B'keser B'shtar B'chazaka. So it's interesting to see that the Bavli walked away from the Chayv of the Pashas of the Psukim. The Psukim is talking about the Kinyanim, and they called them Achuza. And there you didn't, from that Achuza that they wouldn't darshan. The Teres Kainim does darshan. No, it doesn't bring from that puzzle. Where does it bring? My puzzle with this V'snachaltem Oisav Nechem Acharechem the Reshes Achuza. Implication being that because it's the Reshes Achuza, therefore it's Hukash L'Zdei Achuza. Not beforehand. The word that said achuza before wouldn't tell it to us. It's only the reshes achuza. One has to try to understand this. The Bavli obviously understands the word achuza alone won't do it. It's the reshes achuza which does it. Since it's the reshes achuza, therefore Mamela hukshul is day achuza. That's the lashon of the Gemara. Okay. I want to put this on the table. Okay? It doesn't say anywhere it's hukish the karka per se. It's because the heshes, it's not to achuza per se, but the heshes achuza. Now we equate this day achuza. That's the lashon of the Gemara in Kiddushin. Okay, so the hekish is really not to sadeh, but to stay achuza. Okay, because that's what you're taking it from. We just want to see that when we see the drushes. Ad kedei kach that the Bavli is medayik. That Ma'isa, the word achuza alone won't do it. Now you ask yourself a question, so why does it say it twice achuza? So it's en chanami. If you have to make a machlek as a bavli and sifra, we don't. I'm not going into it. We have two achuzas here, okay? You could say bazev limit al zev. Once I have the resh achuzah for taich is also achuzah. That's why now we have two drushes possibility, and the Teres Kainim therefore learns two drushes from it. The first, now that I know that achuzah means the resh is achuzah, so the first achuzah is for kinyan because that's the context of the pasuk. And the second one is miyuter, so it goes for ainot. It's not miyuta. You need it to teach for the first one. Ayin b'malbin. You should look up the malbin, please, both in the two psukim and memvav. You'll see. I'm not sure whatever he says there. He says Gesundheit. I mean, can't say Gesundheit anymore. He's dead. But Gesundheit means good health. But whatever it is, the tzarchin is a bigger one. Something that has to be done. It seems to be pashas kipshutai. That you're going to learn that the Bavli understands Dafka. We're doing from the second drasha, not from the first word. You don't say achuza l'reshes achuza. It's a davar meduyik. The first pasuk says it before shachuza and le'inyan kinyonim. Why do you have to go to the pasuk of isnachal tamach l'reshes achuza to teach me ekesh and kinyonim? That's a tzorchim. Okay. Dal mi hachi the Teres Kainim. Ask the question on the Bavli, and this is the mucker of the whole story. This is the mucker of the whole story. The whole drasha comes from this drasha of Yisnachaltem Oisnev Nechechem L'Reshes Achuza. Al Kocha, the difference between Achuza and Reshes Achuza. That's That's Pashut. Okay. Now the question is, what does it say here? It says here, it's definitely underlying the word achuza, and this is what we say, hukshel is day achuza. So we're being makish at the stay achuza specifically. What's this day achuza? Just like it's like a stay achuza. And since a stay achuza has a din of kesef shtar b'chazaka, like all other sodas, lav dafka stay achuza, like all other sodas have it. Stay achuza means to say, I said before, a family estate. That we have Chalukas Eretz Yisrael, which goes back to us, so to speak, in Yovel. Okay, that's the halacha. There's a halacha of Geula and Stei Achuza. I mean, Mustama, you learned Chumash Bahar, but Chayma, Stei Achuza. There's like the stuff that you should learn. When you learn Erchen, then you're stuck, and you have to learn it. But Lamaisa, it's it's a Chumash. That's the chorah of a meduik. That's a red flag saying something here. What is this? Okay, what's the agdor of this halacha? Why is it dafka learned from Rosh the Achuz? That's question number one, which I pointed out. I want to go further. So what does the Rishbam say? Rishbam says, now there it's a limited Allah kidduchsiv. What's his question? The question is l'chayra, since Eved is hukash karkos, and therefore it should be a halacha that what? It should be a halacha that what? That this is karkos, which they were yorish, and since it's not metaltal in the yasma karkos, they're yorish. They should be yorish, and the balchev should be going from it. They get regular shibud nechasim. Hanimili l'dvar maksuvim b'Torah. This is the only things written in the Torah. Kigoyim, for an example, l'knoisan b'kesed b'shtar b'chazaka. It's really interesting because the pasuk is going on stay achuza, and the mother drasha is that the kishin is stay achuza. Period. Now, what's it talking about? So you could learn. What's it talking about? Could be talking if I was coming back in Yoivo. Says no. We say it's not just in Yoivo; it's also for kinyanim. That's what we're saying. It's in achuza, and now it's for kinyanim. Where do we learn this? Anybody learn Shavuos in this house? Beginning of Shavuos Dayanim. It's the Amid after Shavuos Eidus. Okay, so the Daf after Shavuos. It's an Amid base. We learn it from a cloud pratu cloud. Ma cloud davar mataltal of gufay mamain af pra davar ma pra davar cloud davar gufay mamain. Every yotza avodim. Yotza karkois she'enam gufay mamain enam mataltal v'yotza avodim she'ukshu lekarkois. Okay, and we understand how do we know the Shukshul Karkosh, the Shukshul Karkosh, because it's called the Reshus Achuza. Okay, that's the Gemara over there. Was it Memzayin and Shavuos? I think this is a Shtar B'Chazaka. That's Chavez Kedushin. V'lo Yishav Aleim V'Shein B'Meinoi. That's the Gemara Membavim B'Metzia. We learned also Maklal Pratu Klal. Once again, Davar Mataltal of Gufay Mamay. Okay, so those are the same drushes there. Both in Ainoi, they have the Klal Pratu Klal. And you have the Kalpat for Shavuos. This one is in the beginning of Shavuos Yonim, the other is in Memvav over there in Baba Metzia. So therefore, L'chayra, this is all divrei Torah. It's all why? Because obviously I know as midiraisa, Kesef Shtar B'Chazaka is deraisa. Now let's understand if these are all psukim in the Torah Mamish, right? V'shein b'Meinoy v'Le'iyin Bal Chayv Kimetaltlum Dami. But as far as Shibud Nechasim is concerned, this is like Metaltlum Dami. Why? Now he started up with saying because it's not Dvar Maksuvim B'Torah. It's not called Davar Kosim B'Torah. Does he mean to say because Shibud Lav Deraisa, we don't learn it from the puzzle of Yotzi Alecha Ovet Achutza? Is he saying here the country of Nachman Shibud Lav Deraisa? Anybody remember the Sugi Kuf Chafei? What Das Rav Nachman is? You remember Yaliz Rabbeinu Yoina and different things. We basically bought down with Ganoch Pshutim with the Shibud is Deraisa. We weren't going to learn Leilalacha. In fact, the Shach, the big Shach, like 3 pages of Shach brings out the river Rishon Paskin Halacha Shibud Deraisa. Okay. So, is that what he means here? Does he mean to say the country of Nachman Shibud Lav Deraisa? That it'd be nice if he'd say it like explicitly. That would be hit it very nice. I don't think he says that. What does he say? And while Manavshich, if that's what he says, because it's not Deraisa, why does he have to add the next few lines? The Ein Bal Chayv Soymech Ala Karkos. She'en yichayim le'obed v'le'lodus b'mkayman. Aval avadim loy samcha da'atei. Hilkach loy mishtabdole. One has to understand what's he saying. What do I need this for? If it's Rabbanan, goodbye. Good. It was nice to know you. Elamai, he's saying it's a svar of its own. What's the opening statement of deraisa or not deraisa? What's enough kamina? The beginning of the sentence doesn't end like the end. There's two ideas here which don't seem to be related. The idea starts by saying, when do we say avadim are called ki the reshus achusa uksha lekarkos, specifically dvorim aksuvim b'Torah? Well, normally you close your eyes. What's the opposite? Dvorim she'enim ksuvim b'Torah. Again, well, that only makes sense if Rav Nachman holds, and we paskin la'alocha shibud olav deraisa. Now we paskin like Rav Nachman. God help me. Okay. Maybe we don't pass in the Rashbam. We'll see in a minute that everybody loves this Rashbam. They think this is the only way to go. Okay, you'll see. Everybody quotes him. They didn't have this text. That's clear. Okay, what they had, I don't know. They didn't have this text. Okay, and if they had this text, we're going to do gymnastics to figure out how they read it. Okay, look at this carefully. What does it say here? And he starts, it's possible, kadvasi and b'chavis. And then he ends and tells me a story about smichas das and not smichas das. It's very nice l'chayra for a svara d'Rabbanan. Ella might say svara d'Oraisa. Say svara d'Oraisa. What do you need? So what is it? He holds it's also d'Oraisa, but it's not the svara d'Oraisa. So what's the psicha of any kosev b'Torah? Let's understand what this Rashbam means. So it's interesting. Nechlikum zegdoyle rishonim. That's the honest truth. Let's look at the moment just over here in the Balamar, the Rif. Yeah, here we are. Page Kufnun Daud and Ois Vahada. I'm reading the Rif Gaivim in Avad, Rav Nachman Amar Ein Gaivim. That's basically the dit. We paskin Ein Gaivim in Avadim. It's a nice way of saying that l'chayra. Well, we'll see what the Rif means and why. Well, we have in Muki Yosef already. Zotin Muki Yosef. Rav Nachman Amar Ein Balchayv Gaivim Ehem Heichad Ein Yisem Nechasin Sheyigvim Balchayv Gam Lo Yigvim in Avadim. Afagav the Iskish Karkos, Kid enough Kala and Vivis Nachalta Maisme brings the pasuk of their very nice Chapei Mem Vav, correct? The timer, what's the reason? Mishum Davke Bekarkos Shudaverkaim Hudabal Chayv Samachalayav, Lemitat Lavav, he doesn't make a difference if the rice or not the rice. The Lashon, the Mukiyes Masha is not telling Shabura the rice or Lav the rice, he's not making that nafkamina. And Lamai, he's saying a tam in the deraisa. He's saying, what's the Agdora? Why do we say normally that Shibud normally derises specifically on Karkois and not on Metal? He's taking for granted. The Shibud derises the Chatchila only on Karkois and not on Metal. It's a big Shailin Rishon. Shibud derises only on Karkois and not on Metal. He says the reason why, because you're the Torah, so you've died to Shalodam. So the person is Saimech on Karka. The Baal Chayv, when he gives a loan, he's Saimech al Karka, and I'll die to the Och, and that Karka, he's going to be Malva the Kesef. In the Mela, that's why the Shibud Torah, the Torah was Mishabed, according to die to Shal Malva. Mashenkin, since Metaltla is something which run around all over the place, it's Lav Dafka that you're going to do it that way. Now, this is a Svar Fan Mefurish and Rishon. This is Takim Mefurish. Where is it? I can tell you too, we learned this Sugya once. We learned this Ramah in the Kufay in Vav. It's also a Meiri there. I'll just read it to you. The Meiri writes in Kufay in Hey, in Beis, in the Sugya of Shibur de Raisa, Zok the Meiri, I sent it to you. You have it all in your phones if you ever look at it. Shedvar Torah echad milva b'shtar ve'echad milva be'edim goyvim emishabda umitam shibuda de'iraisa b'pnei shedvarim nirim kach. This is the logic behind it. Shemidas hadin, that means ikra halacha, mishabedes nechasim l'chal alva. Midas hadin mishabedes nechasim l'chal alva. Kemai shedaita shel malva seimechas alav kegon karkos. The Midas Hadin Adin does like what is normally what the Malva thinks of anyway. In other words, the Midas Adin, the halacha, basically establishes the reality which is found in the mind of the Malva anyway. That's what's happening. You have a certain dots of a Malva, which is subjective, and comes Midas Adin is conveyed as a halacha. So what's it based on? Midas Adin, Mishabedes Nechosim L'chol Hava, B'ameh Sheda'ato Shemalveh Somechus Olav. Kegain, Karkos. Shebemetaltalin, Lo Ne'emar La'olam Shibuda De'iraisa, Shelo Yisomcha Aleim Das Malveh. Ay, V'im Mipnei, Shu Goyve Mehem, B'chaye Leive, I L'chayre, you collect from me. If I'm the Leive, you collect from me Metaltalin. So he says, Enze Klum, that means nothing. Shema Shu Gove Mimenu, Eine B'teres Shibud, you don't have to say that you have monetary rights in my nechasim to collect from me. Ve'ein chilik bi'atzma shaloi v'loi meshibud elav de'rais. As far as minei didei, this is Shittas Amiri. I can tell you right now, there's machlekes rishonim in this too. Okay, big machlekes rishonim. Often the Tyson, but it's not that way. If you hold the minei didei is not a din of shibud, there's the only thing he's going to agree to. Even if there is no din of shibud, you would also collect. Now that there is a shibud, do you collect also midin shibud? Yes, but the idea of shibud originally was made for not collecting from you. Once again, from collecting from you, I don't need shibud. I feel glimid al katfe. That's how we have to. If you want this to be not what he says, but I would say according to other Rishonim following the same way of thinking. Okay, he said there is no shibud deraisa when it comes to minei didei. It's enough in the Taisus and Mitzvah which says it is. Okay, and just want you to know in the sugi of Halach. Okay, it's mafurish Taisus, but that's not the issue. The issue is you're going to say the same svara here. We don't need a shibud deraisa l'gvoit minei didei. You owe me the money. My money gabach. Okay, it's as simple as that. Okay, that's the davar pashto. Vade mineva fila glimid al katfei el adavke bekarka. V'hoya min adin litrif malikuchas av milva al peh. Yes, we're talking ikar shibud is not minei but litrif malikuchas. That's where shibud came in, and therefore normally that would be even milva al peh. And there we say el shechashu. This is Rabbanan lepseidas al likuchas v'ifkiu milva al peh midin zeh. What do we have here first? The midas adin, the get of shibudim is not something that God concocted. It's the chatchila daita hacha. We got the malva when he takes account, gives you a loan. He's taking account of there is something to collect from collateral. What the Torah did is establish that into a legal right. Now you have rights in that thing that you hope where you're going to collect from. That's the agdor. Okay, so it's based on what he's samich daita. So this is already a svara in shibudim deraisa proper. Okay, now we have a similar Ramah in Kuf Ayin Vav Amid Beis and Ois Kuf Yud Ches. There he talks about Daser of Papa. Once again, we didn't have a chance to learn that. There's a big Taisus that we didn't do. Kuf Chavav Amid Aleph and Daser of Papa. So here he talks about that and he says like this: Papa ki isle Shibuda Deraisa Medin Orav Hu de Isle. He learns, as you remember, I taught this to you that we don't learn Shibuda deraisa from the pasuk V'yotzi Olecha Avit Achutza. The Rashbam says you learn it from Din Oreh. Loish the milva b'shtar v'loish the milva al peh. There's really no difference. And what's the logic? He quotes the Gemara in Brach in Chayrais. The nichsoya shel inish in an arim ve'arevim by. The assets of a person are his guarantors, and he takes that not as just a lashon, as a real a lashon coming because that's what it is. It's a din of Oreh mamish. V'dafke v'mekarka, but it's only on karka. Once again, he owed the Shibuda deraisa is only on karka. Why? There's some chadaita alei. Same swara. He's saying if das on it, the layachal of rechuna you won't be able to hide it from me and to take it somewhere else. I can actually get it. It's there for me to collect. I can depend on that. Ava metaltala. But metalton, which you're not saying das on it, because you figure if he won't want to pay, and he'll send it somewhere, he'll take it offshore, as we say. Luckily, shibudim it in Orv. Obviously, if the whole idea is Orv, you're in Orv, something you hope to collect from. But here he says, since this is not a good Orv, because you can put it wherever you want, I don't expect this to be an Orv. This Orv is going to skip down, equal this metalton. So therefore, the chatchila, that's not the das of the Torah. Okay, the havli ke'orv shalei b'shas matnamaz le mishtabed shalei b'kinyan shalei amunose elvo. The idea of Orv is based because I lent you the money, Al Das, I can depend on that person. And here I don't trust him, but out to him, therefore it don't work. That's what he writes. And therefore, the same thing applies both here. So here we have it Mefurish. Again, that these svaris of Somcha Daita are svaris in a deraisa. Okay, the one who writes this in the most explicit way is a Rashba in Kedushin Daf Tesvav in the Sugi of Rav Blachman. I want to read it to you because here he writes the words the way I like to see them. So the Rashba in Tesvav in Kedushin. We know this, it's a very beautiful Rashba that once, if you ever learn the Sugi of Shibud Rav Blachman, this is just pure poetry. It's one of those Rashbas that some people misread, whatever, including the choice. There's a din of Shibud Rav Blachman. What's that? Ruvain lent money to Shimon. And Shimon lent money to Levi. So now Lamaisa, so in other words, what happens now Lamaisa is that what Levi owes Shimon and Shimon owes Reuven. So Reuven can collect directly from Levi. Simple as that. Reuven lent Shimon, Shimon lent Levi. So now Levi owes Shimon, which Shimon owes Reuven. Reuven can go and collect directly from Levi. That's called Shibud Rav Blachman. We learned it from a pasuk. In fact, the Rashba Kasha, what do you need a pasuk for? That Shibud, which, so to speak, which Shimon has on Levi, should be mishubed. It's an asset. Should be mishubed to Reuven. Midin shibud. Why do you need a pasuk to say that Reuven collects from Levi? Why? Because there's a special pasuk for Nasan Lasher Oshim Levi. Without that, he simply, what you owe Shimon money. That's a shibud. Okay. Lemaisa, there's a shibud aguf and a shibud nechasim. Okay, so you can't just say shibud nechasim because that wouldn't help. Nafkamina would be from Minei Day or from a Taltul, etc. Me'ikar Adin. Okay, so let's say if you understand shibud deraisa, and he obviously asked the question that we're talking, he owes the shibud deraisa and schal even on Taltul. And if not, this question wouldn't start. The teretz says, since I have a shibud on you, what shibud do I have on you? What does Shimon have on Levi? Shimon has on Levi a shibud nechasim and a shibud aguf, right? Okay, what does Reuven have on Shimon? A shibud nechasim and a shibud aguf, right? Now, the fact that Shimon has a shibud aguf on Levi is an asset which can be shibud midin shibud nechasim to Reuven. You can't have the shibud aguf being mishubud as shibud aguf. That's impossible by definition. Shibud aguf is personal. We learned that already a million times. But that monetary right, it doesn't matter whether it's a direct right or an indirect right, is also an asset which can be mishubed within shibud nechasim. And that's the kasha the Rashba, let every Reuven, which is chayv to Shimon, Shimon's chayv to Levi, let the shibud aguf, which Shimon has on Levi, which allows him to collect minei day umelakuchas, which allows him to collect minei day, forget lekuchas, metaltla, and everything that you want should be mishubed to Reuven. That the shibud would be mishubed. And the answer is very simple. Shibudim are not mishubed. He says, Dr. Rashba, this is the formula. A shibud is a monetary right for gviyah, but it's not an asset which you own enough to be meshubed on. What exactly the formula is here, I'd love to do it, but this is not the place. You know, it sounds good, but it has to be cut and defined. Okay, let's see. Now he has a new kasha. B'im taima. Let's just be careful. It's a beautiful Rashba. Reb Nasan, kiven the mikama kamotzim mizevenayson lezet. Why? Because of a pasuk. My nafkamine midin shibud imichidish the v'nasan asher ashamloi. What's the question? My nafkamina, once I have a pasuk, because the shibud is not mishtabed. My nafkamina imidin shibud imichidish v'nasan asher ashamloi. Not the lashon of the Rashba. I sent it to you. Okay. So, what does it mean? Then the question is, now you're really asking an interesting shaila. Now that I have the pasuk, how do I explain the pasuk? Is the pasuk a chiddush that we think that shibud is not mishabed and the pasuk megala that the shibud is mishabed? or it's a stomach zeres that no, you take, not because the shibud is mishtabed, because of other reasons, whatever reason X. Is there enough kamina? And he says l'chayra, there is enough kamina when it falls from Yisayimim. He goes on and says whatever he says. He finally writes, "Hadale gava chayv metatel de yasma eina Torah." Now, what does it mean eina Torah? The exciting things to say it's a takana rabbana. That's what it means here. Chayv is not gava metatel de yasma eina Torah. The medine gavi el mishum delav iker asmachtei ametaltel. Now he later on explains a little further. Now I'm going to read this. Mikal kamahai taimahum shem the yarda Torah l'soif daitan shel briyos umistama love ikar asmachtinu ametaltela. That's why midiraisa the Torah was yored ledas amalva, and he was not Simon. He's the man that writes this before. Okay, and that's why midiraisa there's no shibud nechasim on metaltela. That's what he writes. So what does it mean when he means to say government yasma aina Torah the Medina Gavi? It means to say what? It's not exeris hakasuv. It's not blind. It means to say it is something which is based on aigoyin. So this is interesting lashon. The hadlei gavi ba'al chayv metatl the yasma aina Torah the Medina Gavi ela mishum delav ikra smachta metatl. What does that mean? It's all time of the cross. Don't see this as a closed rule. It's exerts a custom to get the knas, I don't know what. No. That was the no parsha of shibudim on karka stuff. No, it's based on aigoyin. What it is, we've established something which lies in the das anyway. That's why later he explains this. Yarda Torah l'soif daita shel briyos umistama lav ikar smachtina metalton. That mistama the Torah decides to establish and say, okay, that's the din from now on. So it's a mistama of the briyos which the Torah established into a law. That's what we call eina Torah, a very important lashon of the Rashba. I say this because the Tzayshir made a mistake and calls it Rabbani. He actually didn't look down at the end of the, maybe didn't have the whole Rashba. I don't know what he had. I have no idea. The lashon of the Rashba is Yorda Torah l'soif daita shel adam. That's the Rashba here. Now we have basically another a thinking finding the Rashba in Kedushin Tesvav, in the Raman Kufayin Vav and Boabasra, in the Meiri Kufayin Hey Amid Aleph Mel Beis and Boabasra. It seems to be, if I read this Rashba, this is what this man is saying. This man is saying when he says the pshat in the Rashbam is going back here for a moment. When he says. Does it mean ksuvim versus Adin Rabbanan? Or does it mean just halachas which are come only from like milva ksuva b'Torah? Do you ever hear of a lashon milva ksuva b'Torah? And what does Tais write in Kedushin Yud Gimel? It means to say things we wouldn't have thought up on our own. Yud Gimel Amud Beis, top Taisvis. Milva ksuva b'Torah. That's another halacha. What does Trash say there? It means to say things we wouldn't have thought up on our own. Mashenke and Halva, he calls it not Kshuva but Torah. That's really what he writes. Okay, this is what the Rashbam is doing here. The Rashbam is saying it's not Kosev but Torah. In other words, what does it mean? It's not based on some arbitrary law. It's based on you're establishing something which is found anyway in Das Bnei Adam. That's the lashon over here. That's the Chayr the Pshat in this Rashba. And that's what he means when he said it's not Kos, when it's not Kos but Torah. We're going to say the Rashbam telling me Shibuda love their rice. We'll say it. He's not a kamsa with his words. He knows how to write Shibuda love their rice. Okay, we all know it's machlekes, and so say Reb Nachman Shibuda love their rice. Hello, you didn't say it over here in Kuf Chaf Hey. If you have to say it now, say it. You should have bought it in Kuf Chaf Hey and told us the story. We really want to know. If it's totally in that, it's very important. This is his das. How come, you didn't tell it to us before? It's a bis b'kutcha. It's befurish also in Taisvis. Say Taisvis in Yavamis. Taisvis in Yavamis. Sadik Tes. Taisus writes, the Gemara says there as follows. Let's go to the Taisus, it's short. Mani Reb Meir do Amar metatel mishtabel l'ksuba. Afa gav de b'chol duchta amrina huksha avadim l'karkos. We always hold huksha avadim karkos as far as what do we say huksha avadim karkos. The specific things as far as what, well, the klal pratikal is for gezel, the klal pratikal is for ribis, the klal pratikal is for inoah. Those are the three things which are mafurish. Okay? It doesn't say shibura deraisa or lav deraisa. It just says stop. Why? He's saying the svar within shibura deraisa. He doesn't mention deraisa or not deraisa. Etc. That's what we need. The question is the silent das bnei adam and people saimach daitem an avodim or not saimach daitem avodim nafkamina will be, but the yard of Torah saif daitem shbnei adam. Memele, it depends. If you hold daitem shbnei adam is saimach avodim, so it's shibud deraisa. If you hold loy samcha daitem avodim is not shibud deraisa. That's the shaila on the table here. That's what he writes from first. He doesn't mention questions of shibud deraisa or lav deraisa. And Kivega does me a favor. Sometimes I'm using my good friend. Look at Gillian Ashas. He writes, "V'chein kosev rashbam ba'abaz ukuf chavches omadad v'ras Rav Blachman." I thank him. What does he done? I mean, this Taisus you can't make a mistake in, right? This Taisus is mefurish. He said mefurish doesn't mention ksuvim b'Torah, not ksuvim b'Torah. It just says enough community. You understood? That's what the Rashbam is saying. So how did Kivega understand the concept of kosev b'Torah? Obviously, understood it the way I understood it. It's not arbitrary. Allah Chazoyidus. You know what I mean? This is something which is based on Svara. This is Al Derech, the way I understood that Taisus in Kiddushin. We had this conversation 2 years ago, I think. Yud Gimel Amid Beis in Kiddushin on top. Okay? I'll quote the Lashon to you. Afterwards, you can do what you want with it. Where am I? No. Here. Maybe I'm not doing well today.
Maybe on top of the Rambam.
Yeah. Milva ksuva b'Torah. Pirush gan karbanis api and aben ve'erchem v'nezikin shloya yoydim inyanin nesinas halal l'imloshn is chayv ha'Torah b'feirush. Avo milva kigan shalav le'moz b'leishtar afgad d'siva isha shanoishta noisha boy loy chashiv ksuva b'Torah. Kivan she'ein tzarech lefash b'Torah shir an nesina the pshita mashu lov tzarech lefraya. Thank you very much. So what we have is a cloud god, something which is a svar pshuta. It's not basically only without the Torah. We wouldn't know it. That's not called milvah ksuva Torah. Whether we're talking about the gufa chiv or how much you have to pay, that I'm not going into at the moment. That Rav Blachman and me argue, if I recall. Okay, but it doesn't matter. But the notion of ksuva b'Torah means on things which without the Torah we wouldn't know. We'll leave it at that. That's more than enough to understand this. Rashbam and later that place is Yivam Sadik. That's means the kosev b'Torah means to say something which without the Torah I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know dinner nor dafke mechitesha. I would make a loch of achiv. I would know dinner and ribis. I would know when mechitesha. I wouldn't know dinner shvua. Mashenkin. When it comes to shibudim, this is a svara because it's a person samich daita. That's why things are shibud. That's what he understands. You understand this halacha, which is based on a certain. What we've done is we've established a given logic. I'm sure that without the Torah and other systems of jurisprudence, they also have mortgages. No, I think there are plenty of them there. Okay. These are all gidorim of shibudim, which are man-made because of smichas das arvus. The svar of arvus is a svar of pshuta. Okay, so this is what you have over here. That's the chayra, the pshat in this Rashbam based on that Taisus. But lemaisa, not many of the Rishon. Now we're going back to our riff. So in our riff. This is the chayr what it says here, and this is the pshat in the Mukhi Yosef. At time mishum the dafke bekarkoy shu davar kayim du bal chayv samach alay avalei betal teva avda. This is the chayr, the thinking of the Taishus in Yavam Sadik test. This is the chayr, the pshat in the Rashbam. Then the Balamoyer brings the Rashbam because of Rav Shmuel Mirumrug, that the Rashbam. Afal pi davodim iskish lekarkoyes dichsiv is nachaltem anemil dvorim aksuvim b'toyr kigan liknes kesef b'shtar v'chazaka v'lo lishova alehem v'shein b'em ainoah aval inyan ba'alchev kimetatul and dami shein ba'alchev soymech ala karkoyes shein yichayim le'obed v'le'dazes m'koyma ala avodim le'samche datei. This is the way he brings it here. Okay, I just want to show you how he brings it to, how he brings them in Baba Kama. Just to understand how it's very clear how we understood things. In Baba Kama, there's a Gemara Daf Tzadik Vav Amid Beis, a Mishnah Daf Tzadik Vav Amid Beis in Baba Kama. Yeah, you have your Baba Kamas. Mishnah says, you know, there's a halacha that shinu is kind of. That if a Gazan steals something and nothing was mishtana, so he doesn't have to return the chayfetz, he gives the moish of the chayfetz. And he's misham kishas agzela. Gaza behema v'iskina, obviously price changed. V'avadim v'iskinu, definitely price changed. Mishalem kishas agzela. Why? Because he's kind of b'shinui. They believe that there's kiyonik zela on avadim, and therefore, since you're one of kiyonik, what does kiyonik zela mean? Kiyonik zela means that when you stole it, God made you now. So let's say Gemara Sanhedrin made you now responsible on kama v'kama dinim. For example, you're chayiv in oinsin. What happens if you stole an animal for somebody and lightning struck? You have to pay. I didn't do anything. The Gemara equates it to a shayil in a way. The Gemara said, because no, you so to speak, when you stole it, it's yours for responsibilities. And therefore, you already have to pay, because not just giving back the object, you have to pay for the object. So it's yours as far as responsibility is concerned. And when lightning struck, it struck yours. Yours equals the Goslin's. You must pay for what you acquired. It's yours as far as responsibility is concerned. It's not just as far as responsibility is concerned, it's also for other things. For example, if it changes, shinu, or yush, or shinui, definitely. Shinui kind of. What kind of halacha is it? Something transforms in my rishus, it belongs to me. Would you ever hear of that? What mediki and chatzar? Which king did he make into it? What happens if he stole it? It's in a meadow at the moment, in an agam. How's he kind of with shinui exactly? The answer is the ma'aseh gzela. It's a ma'aseh kinyan. For what? That if it basically kinyan, elamai, there's halacha, you have to give back the object as payment. Okay, but if you can't give back this object because it's not the same object, so Mamela, it's yours. Why? Because you stole it. Stealing gives you certain monetary rights. That's, it's another, Kiyanik Zela gives you the ownership through Shinui. Kiyanik Zela gives you a chiyuv of oinsin, lightning. Kiyanik Zela does something else for you. If you ever steal from my car, you don't have to pay rent. Kiyonik says you don't have to pay rent a car. What happens if I'm not talking about dinei nene. That's another question. But as far as dinei tashlumim, it's ma'abed kisay shechavera. What do you mean? You use my thing. You should pay schiris. No, you don't have to pay. That's the halacha. You don't pay rent. Okay, it's all by gzela. It's part of kiyonik zela. Okay, you don't pay for it. You don't pay for the usage. You have to give back the object. Okay, but the object is received yours as far as your usage is concerned. L'chayr. Okay, there's no such halacha. I'm trying to say there's a concept called kiyanik zela. How is it created? It's created through this ma'aseh zela. What's the ma'aseh zela? You basically took something from, well, l'chayr, it's based on the ma'aseh zela, which means to say you move something from his rishus to your rishus. Now, normally when you move something from his rishus to your rishus, b'dasa makna, it's yours totally. When you move it coercively through gneva and zela, so it's yours for certain responsibilities and certain rights. It's also a kinyan, okay? It's called kiyanik zela, okay? Those who learn sukkah, at least, or Baba Kama, would know something about this, or even ches sabatin in the beginning, if you remember, okay? So l'chayra, that's the davar pasha. So the Gemara says, is there kiyanik zela on avadim? Is there kiyanik zela on avadim? So the Gemara Mishnah says, avadim v'iskinah misham kishasak zela, because it's kind of b'shinui. Reb Meir, and this is the halacha, Be'avadim, oimelei aresha chalafanecha. By avodim, he's not kind of b'kshinui, and he tells him, you can take this old servant the way he is now, although he's worth 50% of what he was when I stole. It's yours, it's not mine. In other words, there's no kiyonik zayla on avodim. Before I go further, we all know that there's Yisur Gzela. We did this. We learned a Rashi in Dvarim Chafei, which means when first you're Sifri, then the Apostle Isasa Gvul Rishonim, that the Sifri says that if you steal Karka, you are over two lavim. Rambam Paskins it la'alocha, I showed it to you in Hilchos Gzela V'Aveda. You're over the Yisur L'Sigzal, and you're also over the lav of Isasa Gvul Rishonim. Rashi brings it in Chafei and Dvarim on the Makom. Every karka has gzela for Yisurim, two Yisurim, an Isra of Leisigzol and Isra Yisasigvul Rishon. This is no one that argues with this. You can't argue with an often Sifri when there's no Bavli, which is not that way. Karka and an Gzelos means there's no kinyan Gzela. That's what it means. It doesn't mean there's no Isra Gez. It's a Furish Sifri. No one in his wildest dreams, unless she's uneducated, illiterate. What? Who? I'm telling you it's a free and you're telling me a fish. I love you so much. It says, I remember, make a smachta. Where's this? Make it tasty to make a drush into a smachta.
All the rest of the things.
Where there's nothing else. Everything's telling you, see a fish, telling you, that's Rabban La'alacha.
Fisher says it's for
His deal. You know what I mean? Relax on me, you understand? Okay, it's a bisa b'kutra. There's an issue that says Israeli six. It's the stomach of the sifri. You know what you're doing to make it the drush of the sifri, which Rashi brings. Kipshuta is pshuta shemika, and that Rambam brings to make it into an asmachta. You really have to have big rice and shas. You know what I mean? Or that, or from a deal kal in the Torah, you wouldn't do it. The best you can do is maybe say, maybe I didn't read the Torah correctly. You have to chap shikla das of what you're doing when you do a thing like that. Okay. So it's a never pashut that there's an Isser Gazel. An Isser Gazel, you can't exactly take it from place to place. The answer is, doesn't matter. I can kick you out of your house. It's also Isser Gazel. Gazel doesn't have, the Isser Gazel doesn't demand me taking into my reshus. The Isser Gazel includes the fact that I control your money in an illegal way. How do I know this? Is a Mefurish Chuvas or Advaz, which I quoted multiple times, that says that it's a Rivash. Rivash said that the Israel Sigzal also includes not paying debts, as Rashi says in Gittin. I mean, it's not the regular Sigzal. They don't exactly have Kiyonik Zayla on debt, but if you don't pay a debt, you're overlay Sigzal, the poor Rashi in Lamed Vav Amid Beis in Gittin. Okay? Lay Sigzal. Okay? The Gemara in beginning of Ezeneshach thinks that there's no difference. Ribis is a leisigzol, a noah is a leisigzol, and the Rivash says that's the emes. That when you don't pay a loan, it's leisigzol. When you force ribis, it's leisigzol. When you take a noah, it's leisigzol. Is it you have kiyonik zayla? Do you have to pirtei halachas? No, it's a broad reading of a leisigzol, which includes immoral or illegal, because I would call ribis immoral, not illegal, because the mice at the end of the day he's chayv. We know that then he's chayv the ribis. Okay, so I can't call it illegal. I call it immoral enrichment from other people's monies. That's all included in leisigza. So David, you include if you kick a guy out of his house, there's no nafkamina between that. Just like by alvod, there's no ma'asek zayla. Okay, I didn't exactly take it coercively from you. It's not. That's why in the Mishnayos and Sanhedrin it says Haidas, Elvas, and Zelis, V'chavalas. What do you mean? The answer is yes. We're not talking about the lavia over. We're talking about the cases that we have to deal with. The cases of Gezelis are coercive, as the pasuk says. Vayigzos chanis miyad mitzri. Those are the coercive, the cases. We're not talking about the surim, the chiyuv. We're talking about the type of case. That's why Rashi there writes that Haidos and Alvas are not Zelos. Why? Because they're not coercive. He's not being shosha when he wrote Mefurish and Gittin. There's no reason. This is not the place where Rashi has to tell him which lavim you're over. That would be a childish thing that many people think when they start learning. That's what it means. He's trying to explain why did the Mishnah divide them into two things. Not paying a debt and Zelos are the same Avera. So you're right, the same Avera, but they're not the same case. Voice is one. It means to say cases of coercion versus others. That's a double passion. This one, by the way, I just answered. It said Pshat in Rashi. Anybody else Sanhedrin here? Except for you. No one did, so no one can appreciate what I'm saying. You remember I said this in Shir. Yeah, but you'll live Sanhedrin one day, and after you listen to some Shir clearly, remember what I said. Okay. So this is a davar pasha. So we're talking about is the now. So there's a lovely sigzol. The question, there's no question, there's no reason if you're going to say the gzela, if not paying a loan is like sigzol, if Giovanni ribis is like sigzol, right? And you know, etc. is like sigzol. So why would you think in God's help the kaka wouldn't be like sigzol? Kicking him out. So what's missing? What's missing is only one thing. There's no partially special chiddush of like sigzol versus other things, which has it the din of kiyonik. There's no din of kiyonik zela by alvot. There's no din of kiyonik zela by ribis by enot. The special halacha of so to speak of these halachas which are only by coercive action. When you did a ma'isa of yotzar reshus nachnas reshus, there's a halacha of kiyonik zela. This we can understand in a very clear way. Okay, so this is what we understand. It ain't a chenami that there's a halacha that there's no kiyonik zela by karka. This we can understand. Now, what's it din by avodim? Here it gets funny. Here it's a shayla. What's it din by avodim? Are avodim karkars like this or not? Well, we know. What did we learn? This we once again we learned it from a klal pratu klal. It's a drasha, a klal pratu klal. Okay, and since avodim hukshel karkars, what's their halacha over here? Does it apply over here? So here there's a machlekes Reb Meir and Rabbi and Tanakam. So the Gemara. Here's a whole lashon of Gemara. The Gemara says, Rav says, Allah is like Reb Meir. What do we do? This price and that price. It's a whole spiel over here. It's a very interesting piece of Gemara. It goes to like the middle of Tzadik Zayin Amud Aleph. Worth reading just to get a background material. I mean, you should have read it already by now. That's the honest truth, but you probably didn't. I have to say Ami and the Yoshev. I always say shir. I send you the Rambam a week before, and when I say shir, that's the week that you start reading it. And by the time I finish this in another 2 days, you will then have read at least the primary sources, and then I'm going to start another sugi. Okay, but that's the way my cookie crumbles. So Lamaisa, what I have here is a Gemara which says Reb Meir Ho that avodim are like karka for gzela. Now the Rif, what did he do? If you have your Baba Kamas, open up the Rif. It's in Perik Tes of Baba Kama in Ois V'Hadar. It's page, a minute. Here it is. Page Sadik Zayin. In the regular ones, I think it says over here, Lamed Dalid Amid Beis, in the old Baba Kamas. Okay, so he brings it like he says like this. That's a very interesting thing that developed. The Rif wrote one thing, but so he added a piece. That's what the Rishonim bring. I'll show you where it is. The Gemara says, last few lines, last 3 lines of the page. Omer Reb Chanina bar Avdima, Omer Rav Halacha Reb Meir. Ad kan. This was the Rif until Yemes Kunusai, and then Yemes Kunusai he added a Goa. The less Hilchas Kavasei the Kaimalon Avda Kimitat Ledam. The Rif had 2 stages in his existence. Once he was Machriya Stomach, the Gemara that there's a halacha of Avda Kimikar Kedami. This has nothing to do with this sugya. And then he comes, he says, no, we don't paskin like that because Avda Kimitalta Ladami. Equals a nice way of saying if you come Avda Kimitalta. Now, where is the kaimel on the Avda Kimitalta Ladami? Where's the kaimel on the Avda Kimitalta Ladami? Where's the mucker? So you'll see the rush. We can look at the rush now. Look at the rush in Baba Kama. Page Nun Vav in Ois V'Hadar, left column. It's Peri Chi of Bokama Ois Vav, the second part. So the Rosh, Rameya Omer Ba'avadim Omer Le Haresh Chalav Fanecha. Omer Reb Chinna Bar Avdimi Omer Rav Halacha Kereb Meir. Kosa Rav Alphas. The lace halacha kavasei the kaimel avdike mekar kidami. Simetal dami. But let me hear it. High piska. This doesn't look good. This psak. Why? The meichi kaimel avdike metal dami. How exactly do we know? How do you know to say these words? The kaimel avdike dami. So it says ma'adam Rav Nachman. Our Rav Nachman. Our good old Rav Nachman. With the mother sugis and babakama yud beis amid. The Baal Chayv legava mi avde the yasmin. That's your mucker. And when we paskin, as far as you say, because shibudim is concerned, the avde kimitatul ledam, there's no shibud nechasim anavad. Umihod tani avimi, and also another gemara, also brought the sheprus b'chal alakarka ve'enu chal alavad. We all know what the prusbol is. You basically miyachad a chayv on a karka, and therefore, it's, so to speak, it's kegavui dami. That to get of the halacha, Gesaymer Daita Kegavur Dami is not Chalakah, because a Rashbam right that's over there, because not Saymer Daita. But this is what the I'm just going the halacha, the Gemara at the moment. The Gemara said the principle is not Chal Alavad. And the third one, and also what the Metatla Niknim Ima Karka ve'ein Niknim Ima Avadim. Das is Vaita Gemara and Baba Kama Yud Beis. You have to see that inside. The halach is that what metatla nickname in a karka. What does that mean? When you have kinyan karka, so and you want to buy metatla, so you're kind of agav the karka. You made chazaka in the karka. You're kind of the metatla agav the karka, even if it's not found on the karka. You don't need siburim. It doesn't have to be tzabar b'karka. You're kind of the metatla, kind of karka. You're kind of the metatla agav the karka. Ve'ein nickname im avadim. But if you're kind of avadim, which the chara as far as kinyanim is concerned. Here, Ramish, the rest is achuz as far as Kiyan. Yet the din, as far as Agav is concerned, it's not called, it's not Nikra Agav Avodim. So we see that La Halacha, although that for Kinyanim has Kinyane Karka, but it's Agdor is Agdor of Metalto. When we call Hanu Ein Raya Lepiska Dahacha, if you want to bring those three rayas, that is not a raya as far as the din of Gazel is concerned. Why? The tiksha the amale reveler of Nachma Ula or Baba Hai Dandid Nardoa Har of Chana by business appears the Kula Sabra Africa Makaka Dummy. Ma Kiman Sphere Lake. Well, my Kamala, he asked him this. I have a whole list of people that say Africa Makarka. Who do you hold like? My Kamala reveler of Nachman. But Lokama Dvarim Matsinu, the Abdi Kimakarka Dummy. What's your question? So for goodness sakes, what are you telling me? What are you asking? Who do you hold like? Who's the advocate? Makake? You should have bought it Dvarim for Russian. Why did you have to bring a bunch of Amiroim? No one argues for the these are drushes, some of the Gemara, some Mishnayos. Pirish Rashbam, he quotes a Rashbam. Now I want you to see if this is the Rashbam we have in front of us. Devade l'chol milada irayis l'choshev kimekarka k'dichsivis nachaltem oisim l'reshes achuza. He kishin a kosav la'achuza. V'hasam b'mila derabanan. Irik, you're going prosbo. V'kiyin agav derabanan. We learned it from a pasuk. Vayitlem aviem areim zov matanis vorim b'tzuris b'Yehuda. It's a Gemara in Daf Chavei over there. It's like the first paragraph of the Ukra the orim b'tzuris asmachta be'alma. Whoa, it's your friend. Okay, he has no brayer. He wants to say, what are you going to do? He doesn't know how to do halacha. So as he wiggle out, he makes it into an asmachta. Nice of him. Okay. But ligus miyashma nami derabanan the sabra shibuda lav deraisa. And who's he quoting this all in the name of? Rashbam. There's no question that this is not written in Rashbam. It's an explanation or extrapolation from Rashbam. He saw the first line of Rashbam of Minat Torah, and then he took for there that the obvious end of the sentences and these things which are not Minat Torah. And therefore he feels, therefore he's forced to say that Rashbam holds Shibuda Lav De'erais, and he has to say that Agav is not Shmach. That's a pretty heavy call. And he says, well, if that's the case, the Rif didn't have to paskin. When he paskin, he could have simply said Shibuda Lav De'erais, and he simply could have said that Shmach, Agav is not Shmach. This is a Psasoget. We can't starve from the Zahasoget. What do you want from me? He passed in Shibuda Deraisa. He doesn't think it's an asmachta. This is this is one of these, sometimes okay, you gotta get used to this. Okay. Is that what the Ravid said? Well, we're gonna find the Ravid. I'll show you the Ravid. I'll show you exactly what the Ravid did. The Ravid is in his Hasaga on the Balamor. Okay, we'll read it. So first, let's go here to the. Let's look at the Balamor here. So Balamor. So this is clearly see at the moment. I have the Chayr, the Rashbam Shel Fanenu is mashma like the Taisus of Mitzivamis, which is the Chayr of Kiva. You understand? But what can I do? Apis the Rosh didn't learn that way. It seems to me a piece of Kutra that the Rosh didn't have the Balamor. We have. Let's ask the question. Either he didn't have what I have. Possibility. How do I know that? Because I know the Ramban didn't see it. The Ramban says he only knows about this Balamor, this Rashbam from the Balamor. I'll show it to you. He didn't see the Rashbam. It'll answer a lot of questions when you have kashas. What Rashbam did he have? He didn't. He had whatever he had. Okay, I'm going to show that to you too. This is a very educational thing this time. Zokta Azoy, Zokta Balamor here in the riff on our spot. We'll soon see the Ra'ah, but first I want to see the Balamor. Dota Balamor in the Ramas of Rav Heiches Shavik. So you turn the page, it's on page Shadik Ches in the Oizvahada. No, it actually starts Shadik Zayin, the last 4 words of the Balamor. But even the Leisel of the Rav, since we don't paskin like Rav, which paskins like Reb Meir, because we hold Avdik and Metaltlin, we don't paskin like Rav. Lefi Masha Pasak Harif Bagosai, according to how the Rif did in his Agor Lusoif Yamav when he added less Hilchasa. Hayalay Lipsik Hilchasa Nishbaim Alavadim. So he should have passed in the halacha that we're Nishbaim Avadim. V'lei Motzinu Das Again, and we find nobody that says you're Nishbaim Alavadim. Ain't because of that. And l'chayra, according to the Rif, if he holds it, and no one heard such a thing. So he says, I have another approach to this. Well, you just saw the Balamor and Ba'abasra. You want to see it again? Look at the Balamor and Ba'abasra, and this is how it's described here in the Balamor and Ba'abakama. And tell me what the Pshat and Rashbam is according to the Balamor. Here, read the Balamor and Ba'abasra. Balamor and Ba'abasra again says, he brings the Rashbam the way we have it in our source, and he says, V'nir in Dvarv, Apapi Shem Loi, Kediv Arif, Lefima Shibrashu, Va'ida Marav, Alach Yerbei, Bavadim Amir Arishcha Fanecha, so he is talking about Dvarim Haksuvim B'Torah, right? Zela is Dvarim Haksuvim B'Torah, as opposed to, so to speak, Shibudim is not Dvarim Haksuvim B'Torah, and therefore we have a Svar of Smichas Das. That's what he writes. Okay, so add this up. It's simply saying the Taisus in Yavamis and Nafkaminas is it a logical thing? Is it Kosov B'Torah? Equals illogical. That's the way it is, or something. You know, you according to Tyson you give them base. So that's what this is. So when the Rajzor writes in Babakama these words, he says that didn't Avon B'Davar She'enam in Atayra Kimatatul L'Naida. It doesn't mean the Raisa Drabana. It means the Davar She'enam in Atayra. It's not Kosev, but it's not only in the Torah. It's a Davar She'enu Yodim Midaitenu. It's a double pasha because, for goodness sakes, there's no way that this Rashbam understood in the Ramah and this Balamor understood in the Rashbam that she would have loved the Eraisa. There's no indication of that at all. He only brings the Rashbam the way it is. That's what you have here. It's very clear that the Rashbam, that the Balamor, we understood the Rashbam the way we understood it, and not the way the Rosh understood it, based on the Taish. Then this time was right. Lamais is a very interesting. I just want to see what the Ramban does in the Milchamos. So the Ramban in the Milchamos in Babakama, this is page Shadik Ches and Oiz Vahada. in the last paragraph, Yesh Shleima, the Alpha Gav Den Ishbar Naleim Ve'en Lemaino Li'in Gzela Kimetatlan Dami. There's a logical difference. He doesn't explain what it is. Between Gzela versus Eina and Metaltula. It's called Metaltula. Mashenkin, and we're talking about what is in the Shvu and the Din of Eina. That's something else. That's why no one brings a raya to Rav's halacha, that so to speak, the ki yakshina alei amai shavik abanim masitan, because this is a special halacha. He goes on and says he wants to say maybe there's a drasha. It's a very interesting piece. Go with. I just want to read the last two lines at the moment, if you don't mind. Last three lines of the Ramban in the Milchamis is Avayoser nirin dvarav harishonim. I seem to agree more with the first halacha of the Rif before he changed it, like Zikna, that the halacha should be Abdikim and Karka, should pass a Kerav, and therefore there's no Kiyan Xela. If you want to know the Ikra halacha, you should trust Shmuel at Tzarfati. That's the Rashbam, we know. Haksuvim b'Sefer Amor as they have a perek Yesh Nochlin. So next time, don't ask me which Rashbam the Ramban had. It's a nice Marimakim to remember, right? I don't know what he had. And since I don't know what he had, I definitely don't know what the Rush had. I'm trying to say, I don't think the Hechad that every Rishon had the Ksav Yad the way we have it. They could have Kintrois and Shmuas. He didn't even have a text. He only knew it from Balamor, for goodness sakes. Which means he definitely didn't own a kuntus of Rashbam on Perek Yesh Nochlin, at least on this page, okay? Or this sugya, call it what you want, okay? He didn't own a Vilna Shas. Okay, you have to get used to these ideas, okay? It's very important. So you did this piece over here. So now you know that. This will undo a lot of problems. You should understand. It really, you have a little brigad feast of the Metzias, a lot of these Torahs and Drushes and the okay? So this is a Davar Pashit. So what do we see over here? Mefurshad, he also agrees to this according to what's written in Ramai. So now, how many of you showing him Linda Rashbam the way it comes out of Taisvis? So far I have the Razah, and according to the Ramban, says he agrees with the Razah the way it's understood there, so it's a Ramban. Okay, you want to see the Ravid? The Ravid. Okay, the Ravid is here in Bava Basra. So the Ravid in Bava Basra, here on the same page, in Ois V'Hadar, it's a very famous book called Kosov Shop. It came out as I have it as a separate volume before they printed this in Ois V'Hadar. These two small letters. I have a separate volume of Kosov Shop. Kosov Shop where? In the Balamor. I don't know if you realize they were Bnei They were both from Provence. They were friends. Okay, I just want you to know. A little note, maybe it'll help you understand something. The Balamor started writing the Balamor when he was very young, but he didn't publish it until he was old. There's actually a whole letter of the Balamor angry at the Ravid that he prints immediately, and therefore he's chayzer. What are you printing for? Wait, you may be chayzer. He, until he printed it, this is Soif Daita. You understand? This is not Tchilas Daita. The Ravid, he tells everything. Yeah, Zokter, Atcharota. He doesn't like these people which say an Atcharot every Monday and Thursday. Okay, at least don't print. Don't print. You want to say. Don't print. Right? Zokti. This is a brisker approach. The Reb Chaim didn't print until he could. When he died, there was definitely Soif Daita. Okay, that's when they print. The Mice, that's what happened. The Rav didn't print. The Chaim didn't print. And because of that, they were chayshish for chazors. This is the Dasa Razor. The Razor is very careful about that. So the Ravid writes, "El diva Ravazeh, v'nir dvarav afapi shem shalekni v'Rav." He's quoting the Razor. Amar Avraham. Afani ken kasafti shalekni v'Rav zal. V'samachti akama stoma shehukshu l'karkos. I paskin also not like this Hagar of the Rif. I was saying and stomach the Gemara did avodim hukshu l'karkos. U'mesh yisosam ein lanu karch l'chaysim. If there's a stomach of the Gemara, there's no way in the tzuras halacha. We're not doichei stomach the sugya. Simple as that. That's not how you paskins, okay? That's what he says. The toivu atam shapir sharaf tzafati. Oh, taking for granted that he was talking on the Razah because he saw the Razah. So it means to say the toivu atam of the Pirsha Razah that they saw in this book here. There's no argument of what it means. Ad kan. So I basically have a Ravid, a Ramban, a Razah, understanding a Rashbam the way it should be understood. Based on that, Rashbam in Kedushin, Meiri Kufayin Hey, and Ramah Kufayin Vav. But the Rosh was an honorable man. Okay, but so as we have a machlekes Rishonim with me. Now let's look at the Ra'ah. So if you look carefully in Baba Kama, in the Muki Yosef, I don't know if you know the Ra'ah was a Dor Revi to the Razah. He was a grandson of the Razah's son-in-law, Rabbeinu Meshulam. Want you to know, you might as well know a little bit of who they are. It's his grandfather, okay, great grandfather to be exact. Okay. It's his grandmother's father. Yeah, because of Ra'ah, the pasuk Riaf, okay, Yitzchak Alfasi, you see Riaf, right? Hirchase Kirav, the Avde Kimikar Kedami, it was Saif Yom of Chazabai, Va'amar. The less Hirchase Kavasei, the Avde Kimikatla Dami, the pasuk of Nachem Perikama de Mechilton, the Halacha Ein Goyim and Avadnik Kimitatla Chashinale. The Hey Shival of Skenoi Harazazal, Im Kain, have a lemipsik nam dishboin al avodim v'oleke man di'ama ubevadi shizut shicha lifnim. This is a serious question. The hoche pasuk Rav avde kimekar kedami v'hicha psaloche psukehi v'akol moedim ba shein dishboin al avodim. No one argues this. How come all of a sudden you say, as far as Gazel is concerned, you're saying something else? We have to understand the Ramban, which Ramban doesn't tell us for, but seems to be saying there is a possibility of differentiating between Gazel and other things. I suggest you go back to how we explained the Taisus at the beginning of Ezer Neshech, based on the Taisus and Sukkah Lamed Aleph. I'll read it to you in 2 minutes, and you tell me what the pshat in that Ramban is. Rav Nachman pasuk shein goyim mehen lefi shein kimitatlin v'gav dina de agav. What about the din of agav? Before she gemara, there's no agav al gav avodim. Lo yichriu bayim kimitatlin kekarkos. It's a suffix in gemara. Va'amru shein nikna agavam. The Maisa, they said they're not nikna gavam. He brings that price. There's another shiloh over there. It's fine. This thing, I don't know if you learned this already. The din of shir. If you made a shir, if you wrote kol nechosai, the pliny, chutzme, let's say you made chutzme karka, so shir kol do shir akol. Okay, what about avodim? What the din is avodim? It's called the shir in the or avodim kimitalton. It's a machlekes. So the Gemara says, "Shala avdikim mekaka dami okim etatlan dami v'sadka b'teiku umeatema gadol echlo ma'isa asa anim asnita." These are the questions that Ra'ah. Va'ikar bazeh zok to Ra'ah shebechol divrei Torah avdikim mekaka dami kishvu avay noavet ashtumei kefil v'dinei shemrim v'piyin nebchor b'chol elu u'tziu me'em karkois b'chlal u'prat ve'avodim she'uk shalahem. Look at the list before we go further. Shvua, Einoah, Kefel, Shoimrim, Piyin Aben, Piyin Bchor. Very good. This is all Milvak Suva B'Torah. Okay? Avahidabo Basra, totally Beloshim De Adam. That's another Pasha. The Gemara Kufnu is not talking about what it is, how people describe it. As far as Shir and Amen, that's really not a question. Because they are mobile. Halacha will see them as karkos, but since they are mobile karkos, as far as shir is concerned, that's not the das. The Gemara has the same thing. If you sold the city, did you include the avodim or not? That's a Mishnah in Baba Basra. The Gemara says there, why? Even if they're karka, but it's karka denied. The Gemara says karka, but so what? It's mobile. In Mechir, when we say metatel, we mean naida. And we say karka, we mean loy naida. So although may halachically be karka, but it's naida, it's like metatel. Here you have it. He doesn't say a word of the Raisa. He said there it's also totally in das. We've seen that language already. That's before Shin the Ramah. It means say it is karka, but Yochel Avricha. So what he's saying is Abdikim Mekakadar, but as far as Shibud is concerned, it's totally in Das Bnei Adam. Does he say that it's the Rabbanan? No, look at the next line. V'chein bedina de Agav. Af Agav, the Efshir de Ever Min HaTorah. Not in a Smachta. The Kedushin Mapik Le'emi L'chsiv V'yitlem Aviyim B'tzuris. Af Hu Toli B'daita Shel Adam. Even that which is they didn't Torah is also totally in Das Adam. That's the equation between Agav and Shibudim. They're Midaraisa, but they're nothing more than establishing a given Das Adam. They're not out of the blue. This is the concept of Min HaTorah, Davar Kosuv BaTorah. This is all based on that Gemara and Kedushin Yud Gimel Amid Aleph with the Taisus. If you see it as tafel, you see it as tafel to an ikr, that's how you perceive it. Then it's called like one ma'aser mekach of an ikr and a tafel, and the kiyin and the ikr is kail the tafel. That's the getter of the halacha of agav. If you said agav, so you don't need siburim because you made it tafel in your mind. If you didn't say agav, it works if it's siburim because it's essentially tafel. This is the makam of this. The place of something is the ikr, the thing which is in that ikr. Shu ikr la'olam, shu adam saimich by, ulefichach avadim kiven shein adam saimich alem mi'efshad lisnach v'tat alem v'chein kasav rabbeinu shmuel v'abasim ikr. Hello, a kitzer. Rav Hussein Arishonim, obviously, I repeat again, understood the Rashbam the way we. Not everybody saw the Rashbam. They all understood this. This is the he definitely quotes the Rashbam. Okay. Pashtus is that at least by that time he had a Rashbam Mechein Kosef, he saw it. That's what it is over there. The Chayra also the Razah had it because he quotes him that way, and that's how he understands it. The Ramban did not see it, but he understood it that way. The only one which obviously did not see it and didn't understand that way was the Rosh. So we have to be very honest. Now we either decide that the Rosh is a mistake, or we're going to try to explain the Rosh, and what does he understand? He understands the Rashbam another way. He understands the ratio, the Kwazika, the Raisa, the Rabbana, and Shibuda, the Rabbana. What's he saying? The Sefer is there for a certain reason. You have to figure out how the Rosh, is there a way that you can understand the Rosh did see this text and translate it the way he said it? The only possibility would be that the Rashbam is answering a latent question. And what would that question be? Called the Tikkun D'Rabbanan came D'Oraisa Tikkun. That's a Shach which asked this question. Hello? Shach asked the question. I think it's in Shin Samach Gimel Beis. I sent it to you. It's okay. It doesn't matter. I just want you to know you have it in your phones. Okay? You shouldn't have to look around. It's all there. Okay? Called the Tikkun D'Rabbanan came D'Oraisa Tikkun. So what's the difference if it's D'Oraisa or not D'Oraisa? And the answer is no, because we understand it's not Samich Daite Olav. That's why they made it takana based. The Rabbanan made it takana based on Smichas Das, and that's not there. That the only way I can understand the Rashbam according to the Rosh if I take for granted that he saw him. But since the Ramban didn't see him, I don't have to take for granted that the Rosh saw him. I got to be honest about this. That's probably the more closer to the emes. But if I wanted to be a yeshiva bacher, that's what I would say. I would say he understood the Rosh with a kvetch. The pshat in the first, it's like Kosuv Torah. And then he has to say, he forgot to say, and Shibud is Rabban. He forgot to say that. But that's how the Rosh understood it. You called the Rabban came there. I was thinking, no, that the Kans Chacham is totally on the das. No, between you and the lamppost, if that's what the Rashbam means, I need a haircut on my palm. That's like reading into him things that you're putting in an elephant into a China shop. Shtiyot, not emes. The emes didn't see it. Just the Ramban didn't see it. Balabatisha emes. Have a great evening.